Oh, no.
It's true. You take that Star Wars lightsaber figure and you take the lightsaber out of his hand. We're just playing with men with holes. Men with holes. What are we doing?
That's going to age beautifully.
Smiles and glory
I don't know
holes.
whatever happened to him, but his mom wouldn't let him have any weapons at all. It's ridiculous. He couldn't even play like laser tag. It was one of those moms. He was the single mom and then the single kid. And, yikes. She's a little overbearing.
Probably a huge gun nut now.
I don't know.
Sometimes you go the other way as you get older.
He moved away when he was like 11. I have no idea what happened to that kid. So we're talking NFL because the Game 7s were an absolute dud. And I saw today the 49ers, your San Francisco 49ers. So last week they signed Brock Purdy. This week, or today, they signed
Fred Warner.
Fred Warner. Best off-ball linebacker, $63 million. So San Francisco has gone all in this summer. Basically, they paid Kittle, they paid Purdy, Trent Williams is sticking around. So they paid their core. And when you look at that division, a lot of people are writing off the 49ers. And when I saw that the Purdy and the Warner deal, I think San Francisco is one of the more interesting stories going into next year. Because I think a lot like Buffalo last year, you lose some key guys that we know their names and we freak out.
Yep.
I think, to me, the NFL general public, because I think some NFL fans are really, really in-depth. There's no sport that has a more knowledgeable fan base than the NFL. But I think a lot of casual people, we fall in love with names. And so when names leave that we know, we assume that that's some sort of big gut job. But so a lot of the players that left San Francisco, they didn't play the last year and a half. They've been hurt or they were just kind of inconsequential. So I think this idea that San Francisco is going to fall off the map, I would make the argument if San Francisco is healthy, I think San Francisco is going to have a big bounce back. But just what happens there, I think that's one of the more interesting storylines. In fact, that entire division to me is very interesting.
They're favored in all but 2 or 3 games. They've already announced the schedule and gave the early spreads. They're favored in all but 2 or 3 games. And to your point, Javarius Ward missed almost all of last year. Yeah. Talanoa Hufanga came back for 1 game and got hurt. Dre Greenlaw, ineffective because he was coming back and he's hurt again. So they kind of dodged a bullet not signing him. A lot of the guys, Deebo Samuel, wildly ineffective last year.
With no Ayuk, Samuel, and he's on the wrong side of the age curve. He's not a factor for him.
No Ayuk most of last year. Christian McCaffrey missed a huge part of the year and he'll be healthy. I think the Niners are going to be just fine. It'll take a different look, but the main core is coming back, and it's actually a pretty good core. You look at teams and you go, man, they had a great draft or they had a great free agency. Just the Niners getting healthy, and I know we don't count them as free agents, but Fred Warner played on a broken ankle most of last year.
Yeah.
If you just count the pieces that are coming back, it is like they've gotten an influx of multiple all-pros. They should be pretty good. They should win 12, 13 games.
And you look through their schedule, it's one of the more favorable schedules.
It's the easiest schedule in the NFL, according to last year's records.
Yeah.
Because they finished last year.
Quirk about that schedule, they don't play a team coming off the bye all season. Not once.
Right.
So you look at their schedule, they're going to be favored at Seattle more than likely. New Orleans, Arizona, Jacksonville to start.
Yep.
Again, if healthy, that can be a 4-0 start. Then you're on the road against the Rams. That's tough because I think the Rams are going to be good. On the road against Tampa. And then Atlanta, which we don't know what they have with Penix. At Houston, and Houston took a big step back last year. I think Houston, to me, is another one of those teams that I kind of circle as which way does Houston go? Because 2 years ago, they were the surprise team in the NFL. Last year, they took a step back, still a playoff team, but not what they were. So I think Houston's interesting. And then you're with the Giants, which I think that's a sinking ship. And then again, division against the Rams and the Cardinals. Carolina, which for some reason...
This is where it gets easy. There's like 4 games in a row here that are ridiculous.
Carolina, Cleveland, Tennessee, Indianapolis, then you finish with Chicago and Seattle.
There it is.
I'm telling you, if the Niners stay healthy, this is a 12-win schedule.
Yes.
It's a 12-win schedule, and yet we're already writing... Some people are writing off the 49ers, and by the way, we've seen this in the Shanahan era. For whatever reason, when they get hurt more than any team, and when any team gets injured like that, it's hard to rebound from that. But what has the Shanahan teams always done after they get injured? They always have a bounce back year.
They had on paper the hardest schedule in the league last year and coming into the year with multiple teams coming off buys, as Buck pointed out. And they had the most starter collective minutes,
Games,
however you
yeah.
want to snaps,
Yeah.
missing. So even if those things just come back to the median, they should be fine. We already know the schedule didn't just come back to the median. They now have the easiest schedule in the NFL.
Yeah.
So yes, they should be good. I think if you're talking to me about storylines, the one I really want to start with, we've seen good teams make it essentially to where the Lions have been. Even teams that didn't necessarily win a title.
Sure.
But then you get the brain drain.
Yeah.
And this is something that happened to the Eagles, and they kind of had to recalibrate. People forget that team lost, 6-7 games in a row 2 years ago, and they had to kind of reset.
Oh, at the end of the year, everything, I mean, they were in an absolute meltdown free-for-all and had to fire both coordinators and have an entire reset. Now, that reset led to a Super Bowl, but yeah, 2 years ago, Philadelphia started off the year like 10-0, and then the bottom fell out. And they backed their way into the playoffs and then got drilled by, I forget who they lost to in the playoff game, but I mean, bowed out in a horrible fashion.
So I think my number one storyline, if you're asking, is what do the Lions look like? Yeah. Losing Aaron Glenn, a defensive coordinator, to the Jets, is now their head coach, and losing Ben Johnson to the Bears, who's now, again, their head coach. That takes a toll. And they lost some front office folks as well. And folks who kind of know the league said some of the guys they lost were some of the key components in their drafting. And if you look at this year's draft, it took on a little bit different flavor, and people didn't like it as much. Now, who knows, right? It's always a crapshoot. No one said Brock Purdy's going to be a star when he was Mr. Irrelevant.
When you look at a roster standpoint, the Lions still have a top 4 roster in the NFL. I mean, there's not a lot. Not, if everyone, again, health. Because, I mean, what happened to the Lions last year is that I think at the end of the year, they were down. It was something ridiculous. Like,
they were down like 12 of their top 16 defensive players. It was unreal.
And you can't do that. But when healthy, the Lions roster is as good as anyone in the NFL. But you also have 2 new coordinators. So
I just think that's fascinating. I'm always interested in the team that almost gets there and hits the reset. How do you react to that?